Good morning, everybody. It's another beautiful day in 2021. It's July 1st. Hope you guys got some sleep because I can tell you that I didn't. Because one, I have thin walls and the fireworks are going crazy this week. Am I right? Brian, how you doing this morning? Good morning, man. What's going on?
I'm doing good. There's no fireworks where I am. I think
I'm
it's
real
illegal
jealous,
here.
man. Yeah, thanks for being on another installment of KETIV's Autodesk Virtual Academy. We have a return of a old fan favorite type of format. And I believe last time you were here, Brian, you did something similar for Inventor sketching tips. Is that right?
Yes, it was like this, but instead of part modeling tips, yes, it was sketching tips.
Oh, happy Canada Day, it looks like. Yeah, I guess it is that time of year, isn't it? Forget that the world's not just Southern California sometimes. Yeah, so this is a particular topic and a particular format that a lot of fans seem to respond to. So yeah, thanks for being on. Absolutely. This will probably be one of the shorter meetings again. So the idea was 15 tips like as quickly as possible. So I think we're aiming for like 20 minutes or something like that, just to challenge ourselves. So I'm going to start my watch pretty soon here, Brian. I hope you're ready for a speed run
Oh
here.
man. All right.
All
So
right.
started after the polls. Poll
All right.
questions.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, welcome everyone once again. My name's Adam Evangelist. I don't think I even introduced myself yet. I'm going to be your host here today. I'm a customer success manager for KETIV Technologies. Brian, also a customer success manager here at KETIV Technologies. We're both dedicated to making sure you guys get the most out of your product and time with us in particular. So, part of that just means knowing how to use the software better, consulting on those topics, providing software solutions. Part of it includes making this particular presentation as zippy as possible. Okay. So Brian's been with us for a long time. He knows a lot about the software. He does a lot of cool 3D printing stuff. He has an Etsy store. And so he knows all about efficiency and, and turnaround. So, Brian, you want to say a little bit about yourself? You got anything going here?
Sure. You might have seen me over on our YouTube channel on Fusion 360. We do our Fusion Fridays, one Friday every month. So Alex Alvarez and I have been doing that every other month. So definitely check that out if you're into Fusion 360. And yeah, I definitely get my feet wet with Inventor and Vaults and things like that as well. As I'll be showing you parts of the tips I've picked up along the way learning Inventor. So hopefully this will be beneficial.
Yeah, thanks again for being out here, man. Much appreciated. So, and one final note, this is a Zoom webinar. So if anyone's not familiar with the formats, it is a Zoom webinar. So it might be slightly different than the regular Zoom meetings. You could expect certain poll questions to show up. You could communicate with chat. Some people have been already messaging us from chat. We have some people from Philadelphia. There's a wife from Quebec, Quebecois, and someone from Waco, Texas as well. I hear it's really burning up over there right now as well. Yeah, feel free to respond to the poll questions. Feel free to send us messages through chat. There should be a Q&A section there as well, where we'll be able to track individual questions throughout the process as well. And also, there's a raise hand button if you guys need as well to actually raise your hand and get some attention. But totally fine, whatever works for you guys. And you can also expect a survey at the end of this presentation as well for any feedback. We much appreciate any kind of ideas or brainstorming for future topics and the like. And yeah, thanks for being out here, guys. And Brian, take us away, man.
All right. I just saw someone chatted that they're from UK, which is really awesome. It's really cool. All right. So just a quick agenda. Give you guys some resources. Then we'll go into quick poll questions to kind of gauge the room of our skill level here. And then we'll just get right into it with the 15-part modeling tips. And then, of course, the Q&A at the end. So here are some resources that are relevant to this. The first one's the AVA that I did in the past a while back on 15 essential sketching tips that we're referring to in Inventor. So this is kind of like the second version of that for part modeling, and then you might guess what's coming third. There's also a link for the Inventor Design Academy, which are just videos of how to do sketching, part modeling, assembly modeling, you name it, inside of Inventor on the Autodesk website, which I think is invaluable. So we'll be posting that out or giving that access for everyone there. It's free to access that. And then, of course, our YouTube AVA. We want to make sure you are aware of not only this video that will be uploaded there, but then other videos we've done in the past as well. Adam, if you don't mind helping me here, if we can go ahead and throw up a poll question with first your skill level inside of Inventor. And then the second one is how relevant this topic is, just to see, how many of our customers are using or viewers are using Inventor, maybe on a day-to-day basis for part modeling, for example. That would make this very relevant. If you use Inventor once a week, once a month, then maybe it's just regular relevancy or somewhat relevant. Or if you don't use Inventor at all, not relevant. So we'll go ahead and give a couple seconds to answer that. It should pop up on your screen there. It won't allow me to vote because I am a panelist.
There's actually a checkbox for that. Yeah, I left it unchecked. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people asking us about like best practices and just pure efficiency gains, So even just saving a couple clicks doing a particular workflow is, kind of hugely valuable to not just us, but to pretty much everyone that would end up hearing this. I'm going to share the results on screen. I think you guys should all be able to see that here. So we have a good amount of people responding over here. I think we're close to, we're pretty good numbers right now. What's your skill level? A lot of intermediate people. I'm sure some people are just being shy. I'm sure there's a bunch of experts on here. And I'm sure looks like a lot of people as well are looking for some day-to-day improvements as well. So
I'm very happy to see that intermediate and very relevant are the two highest, because that's what I'm going for when creating the content.
Absolutely.
is relevancy. So
excellence is what we aim for. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll go ahead and dive into it. I'm just going to throw it up on here just like I did previously in the past, since it worked. So you can kind of, if you're trying to reference this on YouTube, you can fast forward or move around accordingly based off what feature specifically you're trying to look for. Like, oh, I remember Brian showed me this tip inside of keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to zoom to number 8, for example. So just throwing it up there, and we'll go ahead and dive right on into it with number 1, naming your features. So when you're inside of Inventor, you have a part file. You look on the left-hand side and you are essentially overwhelmed with the amount of features that you see. And especially if they're repeating, like extrusion, as you see here, fillets, you can't really tell at a glance which one is referring to what. So if you start to hover over them, you can start to see which one it's referring to. But at a glance, if you want to be more efficient moving forward, we do recommend naming these features. So for example, extrusion number, let's say extrusion number 5. If I open up the tuner assembly that it's related to here, looks like it's for the post cap of this tuner. So if I go into my extrusion number 5 and click on it, not double click, but click and then click again to kind of rename it, I can call it maybe post underscore cap underscore extrusion. And you can name it whatever you want, of course, but something that's predictable by the other people who may be viewing this. Let me name 1 or 2 other ones here, like extrusion number 6. Maybe that's more relevant to the large cap there at the bottom. So I just go to extrusion 6, name that, as you can guess, large cap extrusion. So then when I'm looking at this from the outside and I want to change the diameter of that or change the extrusion cut, I can just go straight to it without even having to go through each extrusion over and over again, saving us time. And I'll just do one more for the that extrusion there, which is for, this one's for the button. Interesting name for that. And instead of just clicking here, you can actually go into the extrusion itself and actually name it here at the top level. So I can call it button extrusion, sure. So pretty straightforward, nothing crazy there. You can also name your fillets. I forgot. Let me name this one button fillet, and maybe I could say top because there's 2 fillets in here, this top one and the bottom one there. So just a quick idea of what you can do to improve your productivity training, or not training, but if you're not doing that anyways.
Brian, really quick, do you have to have the underscore in there? Can you name features with spaces as well, or no?
No, so the underscore you don't need there. I just put there as a best practice kind of thing. So there's different types of cases. It's called cases, where you can name them with underscores. You can name them without underscores. This is called the snake case, where there's underscores. I learned that quite recently, actually. If I took out the underscore, we can still have that as a camel case type of naming convention. Or if I just leave the space there, I don't know what the name is, just for a regular.
A lot of people really like the camel casing from iLogic and stuff. A lot of people always mention that when it comes up.
Yeah, you can do camel casing where there's no space. Yeah, you could do any type of naming as well.
Yeah, so it's largely a convenience thing, you're saying, right? And I know named features, named faces, and stuff like that often come up in automation workflows as well, just so you could call out those particular faces. But we're at 2 minutes on the first tip here, Brian.
All right.
All right,
let's go into the next one here. Display extended feature node. So kind of related to the same idea, where, okay, at a glance, how do I know how far this button extrusion is being extruded? Well, if I go into tools, application options, and part, I can turn on what is called display extended information after feature node name in browser. It's a mouthful, I know. And then once I display that, you can see we have all these information at a top level of the feature extrusions or the fillets and things like that. So if I look at my button extrusion, I can see that it's a join operation. Okay, maybe it might not tell me exactly unless it's that 1/2 inch there, but it gives me more information, like especially like the fillets. I can tell that these are 30 thousandths of an inch fillets. So it's just a good high level knowledge to include when you are just glancing over at your model tree. The more information upfront sometimes is better. You don't want to also, overwhelm yourself, but if this is useful to you, turn it on.
All right, 3.5 minutes, man. All right, save some time.
I knocked that one out real quick. Drag and drop end of part EOP in model browser. So if we want to make a change, let's say we want to make a change to this feature here, you can just go into that feature and make a change to the sketch. I'm not saying you can't, but what I sometimes like to do is, if it's a very overwhelming part, just dragging and dropping the end of part feature here in our model tree to that feature. And then I can kind of get an idea of a simplified version without all those fillets and things in the way. And then I can go in and make the change if I wanted to. And then you can slowly start to drag it out and just make sure everything is going to kind of function as expected or appear as expected. And I might see, oh, maybe that whole extrusion might be something I want to address. So you can just go back to that whole extrusion and make the change. Again, you don't have to do it the way I just did with the end of part, moving it up there. But I just thought it was like a nice little tip to show in case you're newer to the modeling and you don't know that you have that ability.
Yeah, and notably, the end of part thing is it's really good for injecting features earlier in your parts timeline, because you'll notice even though you could drag and drop features around, sometimes you can't move certain things past shells or past mirrors up the timeline. So you could do like an end of part to inject stuff before that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
5 minutes, Brian. How you doing?
I am feeling good. 3D annotations. Let's get into it. So if you are sending parts to manufacturing and you don't want to or need to create a 2D drawing for them, you can do that. You can annotate it in a 3D fashion. You can go here to the annotate tab and just simply dimension the features. And I know I'm not getting this perfectly here, but I just wanted to generally show you a feature being dimensioned. You can dimension distances there. radii or the diameters. Let me do another one there. You could do hole threads. I don't think I have any holes in here in particular. These were extruded cut, unfortunately. And then you can also over here on the left-hand side, this annotations folder appears. So I have the ability to right-click, change annotation plane to kind of make it sit upright, to maybe be more visible, or oops, I hit escape there, to be more appealing to the eye. Enter. There we go. And then moving on right on to example number or tip number 5 is creating a PDF or a shared view from the model. It will bring over these annotations, which is really nice, and it's sitting under here under annotate. So if I create a 3D PDF, and I'm not going to go into the details of this window, you can dive in later yourself. But essentially, I can go ahead and publish a 3D PDF. It's going to go ahead and create one for us. Or I can create a shared view. And I showed that a couple of times in the past, but I'll show it again real quick here. But you can create a 3D PDF. And what's neat is you don't need a viewer, a regular, or you might need like a PDF viewer, but you don't need like a Inventor viewer to view this. You can just send whoever, like manufacturing or a vendor, this, and they can see your 3D annotation. So it's a neat way so they can still rotate it around and get an idea without having to create a 2D view. You can also do the same thing for shared views.
Yeah, and we see this a lot. A lot of people have been talking about like model-based definitions as well, which is, you know, part of a lot of kind of modernization in these types of manufacturing workflows as well. If you guys are using any type of like model-based definition, this kind of holistic single file stuff, leave a comment in chat. We'd love to know more. I mean, just, you know, shout out to anyone taking a step into the future with 3D annotations.
Yeah, get ahead of the game, definitely. And then here's the shared view one. This one, as long as they have a link and they have access to the web browser, they can view a 3D rotatable view that they can measure and comment on. You might have seen this in the past, but again, it does bring in over the 3D annotations. All right, moving on to tip number 6, suppressing feature properties. So if for whatever reason you don't want, or probably for good reason, you want, if this hole was to be too large, larger than the radius of this outer fillet here, then you want to suppress this hole. You don't want it to actually execute. So what you can do is, first, let me quickly go into here and just make and dimension that so I have an idea of what the size is. So it's 0.125. And then with this feature here, it's 0.09. And this is dimension 11. The other one, just real quick, was dimension 71. So if I were to tell this not to create if it's larger than the 0.125, we can actually go to our feature here, right click on it, go to properties, and then this is an if statement. So if you've done coding, you kind of have an idea of it. It's nice and packaged here for us. If D11 is greater than or equal to D71, then I want this to be suppressed. So right now it didn't suppress that because that is not the case. But if I made this 0.125, or this is radius, let me do 0.25. If I made this the same or larger than 0.25, it should suppress my feature. And it did, because I don't want to extrude cut something that it's going to just completely erase this off the face of the earth. So that's just an example of suppressing features based off like if statements. You can also do that based off like if you had a pattern and you don't want it to kind of replicate too many instances of itself, you can use this kind of feature there in that scenario.
Ooh, 10 minutes, Brad. Where are we at?
I'm halfway. I think, no, I'm a little behind.
No pressure.
Build about the origin. So it's best practice to build your Inventor parts, of course, about the origin, for two reasons. And let me just transition over to my other project file just real quick here. Let's go into something everyone should be able to relate to, which is a Lego man. So if I insert a part in here into my assembly, one benefit to making your models built about the origin is when you place it into an assembly, you have an idea where it's going to come in. So if I place grounded at origin, and I hit escape there, I don't want to place more. I have this model in here that has the same origin plate points as, so X, Y, and Z there. The same with the assembly origin, X, Y, and Z. And people take advantage of that. So they might build it like, feet or inches away from the origin. So then when they bring it all together in an assembly, it kind of it comes in as expected kind of thing. But then there's also scenarios where you just built it, the center points in the middle of your model, which is nice because then you can kind of build them to kind of constrained and come together. And I'll show you that just now. So if I bring in this leg piece into my model here, and let me go ahead and rotate this around to get it ready. And I want to constrain it to this model. What I can do is, so if I try to constrain it to this edge here, you can see that I can't really do that because this is obviously angled. So I'm not going to actually do that. What I can take advantage of instead is I can constrain this plane with the plane of the model that I brought in. And since it was built with this best practice in mind, it's going to line up as so, which is really nice. And now wherever I move it, it's going to, it can only go up and down essentially. And I could dive further into that, but that's essentially one of the best practices. So you could take advantage and align the model up with the planes that it was built off base, the best practices there. All right. Keyboard shortcuts and marking menus. So this one I have to include. You may have seen it many times, but I think it's so important because coming from Fusion 360, learning Fusion 360 first is essentially, I like to, or under tools, customize, I like to associate the C on my keyboard as the center point circle. So if I go down here to C, center point circle, I'm going to put capital C there. Let's do enter and apply, because every time I want to start a sketch with the circle tool, I just hit C on my keyboard. All right, hold on. I'm in assembly mode. Let me go into the body to edit. All right, C on my keyboard. And now it's going to go ahead and give me that option right away. And it drives me crazy when I can't do that, because that's what I have locked down and loaded as a keyboard shortcut in Fusion. And I don't want to really change the way I've been modeling. So I just change the software settings to my my expectation instead. And another one, if we go here back to settings, is the marking menu. And again, same thing coming from Fusion. I like my 12 o'clock to be the last command that I just did. So it's gonna be blank because it's actually, you don't know what the last command was. So, or it doesn't know what the last command does. So I'm gonna apply that. So if I right click and go into my 12 o'clock, it's gonna choose the repeat customer user interface. That's what I just ended up doing there. If I draw a line here, escape, and then I do 12 o'clock, 12 or right click 12 o'clock, it's going to go straight to the line tool again. So I don't have to go digging for whatever tool I recently used. And you don't have to click and hold and wait for it to come up. You can just go really quick and it'll appear like that. So just in case you're going hyper speed when you're modeling, you can use that tip. Let's see. We are on mouse setting rotations, so very similar to the rest of those there. If you're coming from SolidWorks, for example, and you're trying to rotate it just with the middle mouse button, you have those options under application options, view, or sorry, display, not view. And then MMB, middle mouse button down below here, you can set that to orbit. And then instead of holding shift like I have been doing, I'm just holding the middle mouse button and rotating it around. And I remember just really liking that when I was in SolidWorks. But anyways, just a heads up in case you don't want to change your ways there either. And also, while I'm there, if you have these settings and you're moving to a newer version of Inventor, you have the ability to export out this XML file of your application option settings, and then you can import that in. And then also, if let's say you're on 2020 right now and you're going to go to 22, if you have that version locally and you download 22 first, Inventor will automatically know that you have that locally, and it will ask you if you want to transfer those settings. So you don't even have to import or export.
Oh, you still there, Brian? Oh, no. Oh, no, not the timer. Can you guys still hear me, or is it just Brian I'm missing here? Oh, shoot, Brian guy. Oh, no. So pause the timer. Oh, crap. Okay, well, no problem. How's it going, everybody? I guess I'll bring up my Inventor now. I wish I would have got a copy of the presentation beforehand. All right, well, hang tight. I guess let me speak to some of the other questions we have here so far. I'll just throw up a screen share of my Inventor and maybe we can talk through some of these remaining tips. No worries. All right. All right. Yeah, well, how's it going, everybody? I think we lost Brian there, so believe he'll be able to join back shortly, but who knows? Let's see what other questions got. Yeah, we'll hang tight for a moment. Let me see what questions I could answer in the meantime. You guys are a good audience so far. I'm glad people enjoy this type of meeting for sure. Yeah, and so I see some people talking about priority selection. That's a good point. I could talk about that for a little bit here as well. Some people prefer different types of priority selection, right? So if you're in a particular type of model, right, and you want to select certain faces versus others, there is something called priority selection up here. Not many people track off of the default settings over here, but depending on the context that you're in, you're going to be in different selections. So do I want to select bodies? Do I want to select features? By default in the part environment, it's faces and edges, right? But someone noted in the comments, some people like just select features in particular, which allows you to select the entire feature to go and navigate larger, complicated models and the like over there as well. Someone had asked earlier, Adam, can you snap to midpoint during a sketch in the Inventor part? The answer may surprise you. The answer is, of course, yes. So if you're in a particular sketch like this and you need to snap, if you're in a particular sketch command, you could always kind of scrub around the midpoint of any of these particular locations, like in a line. Green dot means point of interest, means midpoint, and there's actually a constraint associated with that automatically as well. One thing people might not know, though, is that in a sketch command, you could right click and you actually get point snaps over here too. So if you're like me and you came from like AutoCAD, for example, and you missed like I think it's like shift right click for like override snaps, you could kind of do the same thing here where you could still snap to endpoint, midpoint, intersection, apparent quadrants. We haven't seen quadrant in Inventor in a while, but you can do quadrant snaps on circles and the like there as well. All right. You guys with me so far? I think we're close to 20 minutes here. Some other keyboard shortcuts. Shift right click. Shift right click is a good way there. Yeah. And then, Brian was talking about customization earlier. There's a lot of stuff you could do there. And, some people prefer some certain things over there as well. And I think he was just talking about the different context ones for sure. I think circles are a really natural one for sure. If you want, you could customize the marking menu depending on the context once again. But I mean, most of these things, I think Dimension D is a classic one. And I actually have a page for, I don't think I need to show that actually. That's fine. This is pretty much everything here could be customized to be whatever you want. And you can even do key combinations as well. So if you want to do like combinations with Alt P, for example, that's also very possible as well. See what else we got over here. Oh no, we're only at 10. All right. Spacebar to repeat last command, absolute classic. Sometimes when I give presentations online, especially for trainings and stuff, I'll be flying. I'll be like placing lines over here, and I'll be placing another line over there. If you're ever wondering how people do that and they're able to draw so many lines, spaced apart from each other like that, or multiple commands, it's two things, right? So one, you could press escape to exit a command, as you may know. And then spacebar lets you repeat the last entered command specifically as well. So, something like that. Escape, spacebar again. There you go. Let's see what else we got over here. Thank you. Spacebar, last key order. Thank you. Please show us more of the options of creating datums using axes, angular datums. I find it difficult when I get from Creo in particular. That's an interesting point. I'm not sure if I could say a lot about datums, at least in the part and sketching environment in particular. And someone mentioned the 3D annotations already, which gives us some extent over here. And so I'm not sure. Is there some datum? There's some general profile notes over there I suppose we could use, but datums we usually see in the drawing environment specifically, which we might have in another video actually, but I won't be able to say too much about that, Ravi, I'm sorry. My favorite not so used tip, using seal round down to automatic. Dude, Claudio, you are speaking my language, man. Claudio's a champ, dude. Okay, so I was going to mention it earlier, but we talked about some automations or some kind of logic you could program into individual features. Why is the 3D annotation text so big? I could answer that actually. Functions, parameters. Here's another tip for you all. Well, not Inventor. Hang on. Yeah, and so I was going to say, when people talk about the kind of logic that you could extrude in here, right? So Brian showed right-click properties. You could come in over here. You could do like an if and put in some values. People start thinking about automation automatically, right? Like you could do a lot of this in iLogic already. And as far as I know, I don't think there is like, an actual, I don't think there is an actual, I don't think it gets represented anywhere else. And so I'd open this part just to test in the background actually, but as far as I know, there's not like an iLogic rule associated with this from here, right? It's just an extra bit of logic, and you can do that logic in the iLogic scripting environment if you'd like. There's other algebraic functions you could do in parameters, so not necessarily logic, but you do have access to, for example, the trigonometry functions, rounding functions, ceiling, bottom functions inside of parameters as well. And so in addition to the basic algebraic expressions, right? So plus, minus, multiplication, and the inverses, right? You could also do powers, you could do exponents, you could do metric annotations over here as well to get different values. All the trig functions are available to use in the parameter environment. Ceiling is a very good one. Rounding is a really good one. And even between that rounding function and just the feature properties, you could actually get a lot of logic without having to, write your own iLogic script. Not that this would be hard to write in the first place, but in particular, I really like isolate as well, which lets you strip units from a particular parameter if you ever need to. All right, this was great, guys. What else? Can I see this if in a list? That I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't not sure if that like right click properties thing on a feature actually shows up anywhere else more interesting to be managed and stuff. So I mean, honestly, if you guys are looking at that sort of stuff, I would probably, if you are trying to automate large portions of your drawing or add some more logic, I'd probably just look straight up at, the actual iLogic environment to start doing some of that
Yeah.
characterization. Oh, Brad guy, it's about 25 minutes after, man. We're barely on tip number 7.
My internet died, and did not even come back at all. So I'm on my hotspot on my phone.
No worries, man. Yeah.
So sorry about that, everyone. I see a lot of people are still on, which is awesome. Thank you.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's not so bad. We were just chit chatting over here. I was just talking about some of the functions you could use in parameters. Claudio was talking about that. And you had mentioned 3D annotations too, and I was going to respond to this question as well really quick. But if you're curious, like in regular drawings, annotations follow all of your regular styles, right? And you're used to working with styles in the drawing environment. You can also work with styles in your part environment as well, oddly enough. It just happens to not have as many styles. But if you're curious about 3D annotations, 3DA, you could look at some of the formatting under styles over here as well. So these are some extra tips for you guys. And so if you want to do editing and change the sizing, you could probably take a look at that here. And I haven't played with it too much, but I would presume, depending on the scale of your part, I would assume it would maintain this. I'm not actually sure, but this is where the styles are controlled for 3D annotations as well. These 3DA notes right here. All right. Any other questions for me before I pass off the spotlight over here? All right. All right, Brian, how you doing? You back?
My internet's a little shaky because I'm on the hotspot, but I'm sorry about that, everyone. I don't know why the internet just dropped on me randomly.
No worries.
But I will try to zoom past the rest of my tips here.
No worries, man. Yeah, you ready to do a screen share? I could
Yep,
I could take a screenshot of your list, and then I could I could pick up if we drop out again.
Yeah, I sent that through chat, so you should have the
Let me grab it again.
list.
That's perfect.
But I don't know where we left off, but I was threads.
All right, Brian, you're breaking up pretty bad there, so I think I will. I think I will just. I could probably carry the through here.
You can display or not display them depending on your model. All right, sorry about that.
Brian, I could probably take it from here, man. I could probably do the rest of this, no problem. Yeah. So
yeah, I don't know if you can. Can you hear me? Okay, or is it still?
You're pretty spotty. So you know what? I got you. Go ahead and try to stay on the call, but I could continue with the screen share from here. So let me share my screen again. I got you. We'll do it live. I think that was an Anchorman reference. So okay. So yeah, Brian was saying we just talked about the mouse rotation settings, which could be found in application options. Not modeling threads. This is a general idea. Like if you ever did a thread feature inside of Inventor, it does not allow you to do any kind of, well, it doesn't produce a specific thread, but if I produce a hole over here and I'll reduce this a little bit, like 0.5 or something, right? We could add a thread to it, and these are purely cosmetic threads as they're commonly referred to in here, right? So the cosmetic threads, they're not actually modeled. We generally don't recommend you model the actual threads because it's a big CPU load in particular and causes performance issues, especially in larger ones. And I originally mentioned this just because as far as complexity goes and having simplified models, it's one of the use cases for implementing model states, for example. And so if you do have modeled threads and you have physically rendered threads through here, maybe just make an extra model state and then suppress it in another one so you could have a bit more of a usable one, kind of similar to how you use level of details at the assembly level before. So that's one of the many uses of model states. And we have a few videos on AVA for that as well, right? And what else do we got over here? Whole command referencing edges. I love the whole command personally. Sometimes it's a bit finicky to kind of understand, but when you're in the command, you could actually reference off of edges like this and this, for example. And you could actually just draw annotations out there to those specific spaces, right? Whole command's technically based on a sketch, and you could edit the sketch manually if you need to as well. And so you can come in here, edit the sketch point as well. If you're lucky enough to have like some kind of fillet on here, you could also use circular references during the whole command as well. I'm going to move the whole command down, and once I come into the whole command, I could reference the circular edge. So now it's going to be concentric with that particular section over there as well, which is an extra click. And well, you're saving yourself a few extra clicks, so you don't have to configure the sketch yourself, right? Okay. Let me take a breath there. That was a whole command referencing edges, 3D modifications instead of 2D modifications. And I believe what Brian meant by this is, in general, if you could put stuff into the part environment, you're going to want to edit it in the part environment. So things like fillets and chamfers, some people noted there's already some kind of expected order or orientation in your model. So typically you do fillets towards the end if you can, because they tend to consume and break other parts. And that could be generally true for all these modify commands. You want to do this after you have your solid geometry created already, because it's going to consume and change what's already existing as features. And, if you consume those, then they break and then you're having a bad time. And so in general, you want to have fillets out there if you can. In this case, this whole command's referencing fillet, so it can't be moved down there as well. Okay. And let's see what else we got over here. I just want to make sure we got click and drag. This is a cool one. This is a super subtle click, but if you're ever making work features like work planes, for example, whole host of different intentions over here, right? So tangent, parallel, tangent, edge, whatever you got over there. One thing you could do, right? You could either just choose offset from plane, which lets you offset from plane, of course, but it'll lock you into a certain number of clicks or certain specifics of clicks. What's nice about this particular command is if you just start it, right, it's actually context sensitive. So notice that I could pick faces, circular edges, and all sorts of different stuff. If I click one edge and I click like another edge, for example, I get rotate work plane around a edge, right? If I just click and drag on a face, I could do offset plane really easily, really quickly like that. So this is context sensitive in the same way that like dimensions are context sensitive, right? Depending on what you click, you'll get different solutions, or you could just manually pick off of here. For example, like tangent to surface edge is a really popular one, but if I want to restrict myself to those clicks, I could only select these tangent surfaces, and now I'm kind of stuck there without any other option from there. Okay. So that's really nice. That is context sensitive. So, feel free to be a bit more loose with it, because it's pretty willing to take those inputs from you. Click and drag, direct edits. Brian does a lot of this direct editing as well.
Yeah, Adam, my hardwire says it's back online. I don't know if you can hear me better.
Yep. Yeah, you sound a bit better for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about that, everyone. So I do have I'm on to the direct editing one, number 14. So
cool. All right, man. I'll hand it back to you, man.
Give me one more chance.
All right. You're at a -5 minutes so far. You're doing all right. Okay. Let me take care of the chat.
Yeah. Let me share my screen here. All right. Direct editing for number 14 here. So essentially what I was referring to in direct editing is if you were getting a model from your engineering or design team, and there's a small change or small changes that you want to be made, and maybe they're sending you a third-party file, like a step file, for example, but you don't want to necessarily send it back to them to have them make the change, because it's going to go through a whole process. Or you can make a little change here on your end. What you can do is go to your 3D model tab, and you have the option to do minute tasks. Like if I go to delete face here and I don't want this particular feature here, I can select these faces, and I can just go ahead and check heal remaining faces, and it'll get rid of that while still respecting the integrity of the recessed holes here without. So it's essentially a big change or a smaller change that was made without having to essentially see the design history here, since this was made in a third party and this was a step file. So usually we can see those changes, the features with Inventor part files, but since this wasn't, we can still make changes. And in addition to deleting faces, you also have the ability to use the direct command, which where you can select the faces of the step file or the third-party part. Let me go ahead and select the bottom ones as well. And you can actually move that feature even though you don't have any sketches or anything like that. and you can move the entirety of the geometry, which is really nice. So if you need to use those tools, they're at your disposal. Try to get away with the standard sketching and extruding tools as much as possible. But again, that's the last case scenario you'd want to use something like that. All right. Let me drag that over to the screen here. Not sure why that's not showing.
And I think the next one is going to be full round fillet, correct?
Yes, full round fillet. So it's just fun right now. So the full round fillet. So essentially, if you have a feature where you don't, like, I obviously don't know the what would make this, if I were to create a fillet on these two sides here, and I don't know what it would take for it to be perfectly round, like this is 0.375, this might be too much, obviously. So if I don't have that information there, what we can do is use a full round fillet tool. So if we go under fillet here, full round fillet, we can select side A, the center face, and side B, and it'll give us the exact fillet radius, for example, for this. And we can go back here and measure it just to make sure. Under tools, measure, we can see exactly what that fillet was, and it looks like it was a 1/2 inch. So maybe that was something more predictable. But if this was something that was like a 0.48 radius, you don't have to actually try to figure that out. You can use the full fillet tool essentially. And then lastly, I know that was 15, but number 16 is an Inventor sample files. I wanted to just include this because I think it's super helpful to just have access to a bunch of sample files out there, like the tuner that I used in my previous example. You can go over here to open samples, and it'll direct you to the website where you have all these sample files you can download. There's a lot packed in here. This might just be one little link here, packaged executable. But there's a lot of files in each of these, so I highly recommend checking those out in case you need to see some examples of how things were made or how things were put together. All right, so thanks everyone for hanging through all that. And thanks, Adam, for helping back me up while I was down there. But I just wanted to just draw everyone back to those 3 links I referenced earlier in regards to the resources. We do have an AutoCAD tips, 15 AutoCAD tips coming up in July that I believe Jeremy will be doing from our team. And I do plan to do an upcoming 15 assembly modeling tips based off the polls that we got off of our YouTube channel. And let me go ahead and paste that over here for everyone, where you have the ability to vote on what tips you want to see moving forward. And that will be under our YouTube channel and community. So I'll go ahead and post that here in the chat room so that everyone has access and everyone's voice will be heard when voting here. So let's go ahead and send that to you all. So yeah, that definitely went over the 20 minutes there, Adam. Sorry about that.
Dang it, Brian. I told Brian that I was going to let him pub out his Etsy store page if he made it under 20 minutes, but no one's going to know about it. That was fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that. Yeah, we have a bit of time for a few questions over here. I tried to address them earlier if I could. Someone's asking about multi-body parts. I think we got a question on YouTube about multi-body parts as well. In particular, some people are asking, in simple words, is there a way to export multiple separate solid bodies created while directly during an assembly, such as a Inventor part model? I think those are related questions, I hope. And just in general, yes, you can work with multi-bodies. It's kind of a dedicated workflow for, not really a dedicated workflow, but it's another way of working with Inventor, right? So if you do an extrusion or any other create command, there's an option to create new body. And there's even some modify ones like split that allow you to create separate bodies. But once you have a list of solid bodies in your part file, you could actually right click, export those to individual components in an assembly, for example, or you could export them to individual IPT files off of there as well, which is kind of a fun workflow for people trying to get the most out of their kind of top-down design methodologies. So it might be a good topic for a future conversation as well. I've been having a lot of those convos actually lately about multi-body workflows versus multi-part or multi-component workflows. But hopefully that answers your question over there. And then someone also asked over here, since all part dimensions are interrelated, is it easier to model assembly directly as a whole? But then I want to separate each part as a unique inventor part. That might be the same question actually. Yeah, and so this is a very high level distinction, but some people talk about like top level or top down designing inside of Inventor in particular. And so I wouldn't say one's necessarily better than the other. It depends on how you want to do it, whether you make each individual part and then put the assembly together, or you start in the assembly and start modeling each of the individual parts from there and then building down, right? It's just a preference, and depending on how your part structure and your part numbering goes, you may end up with one over the other pretty easily. But probably a conversation for a larger topic over here. And then, yeah, Patrick, I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't think there is a way when I do that feature suppression property on a feature to list it anywhere. Of course, I think if you just go into iLogic, you could easily set that up as well if you're comfortable with that sort of stuff in the first place, which would probably be my recommendation if you just need something simple like that. And then Ravi, I'm not sure if I could speak to the drawing datums in particular, but I think you saw the work references that I did earlier. If you need work features like planes and stuff, there's some good stuff you could do there. And I also recommend the UCSs as well if you have to do custom coordinate systems, if you guys need that particular type of reference frame as well. But hopefully that suffices for now. Brian, any last words here regarding just Inventor tips and just, I guess, efficiency overall in Inventor?
Not necessarily. I'd say just use what works for you based off some of the tips I shared, and definitely reach out if you have any questions of what I showed today. And we are going to do assembly modeling tips in the future session like this, so we can dive more into best practices and how you can kind of streamline your workflow as efficiently as possible.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, feel free to engage with us on any platform at all. We have YouTube, of course, and, various emails and the survey coming out at the end, of course. If you guys even just have tips, I would love to just know what other tips you guys have on hand. So, I mean, let me know. Let us know. We're happy to learn. It's always a learning experience, smarter every day. I had someone in chat earlier, I think the guy from Quebec, now someone else from, he was saying that, my other users might think I'm an expert, but I'm always trying to learn more. And, honestly, that's all it takes sometimes, guys. All right. It's, it's the desire to learn more. Thank you all for being on this call. Thank you, Brian, for putting up with us over here as well. Much appreciated. And we'll see you guys all next week. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye all.
Bye.